Who were the standouts on day 2 of Senior Bowl practice? I'll be joined by Hunter Thompson and Treshon Diaz of Neptune Scouting to break that down. And we'll also talk about Terry Fontenot talking about building in the trenches finally. And we're going to be talking about how the Falcons' approach to free agency will be how they do it.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, guys, you know me. I'm Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Sirius Black, and, of course, the very humble host of this illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Just pick 2 to 6 players. And if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Guys, I thank you for making Locked On Falcons your first listen each and every day. Of course, it's free and available Monday through Friday on a variety of podcast platforms, including YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Falcons YouTube channel. You get the video version of the podcast the night before the audio drops. And you can also check us out on your Roku and Amazon Fire TV as Locked On Sports Atlanta. Just download that Locked On Sports Atlanta app on your Roku and Amazon Fire TV. So, guys, I am from another undisclosed location here in Mobile, Alabama. I am with Treshon of Neptune Scouting, Hunter of Neptune Scouting. And these guys are also part of the New Millenniums podcast. They were on hand for day 2 of Senior Bowl practice for both the American and national football teams. And we'll get the lowdown on some of the standouts from their eyes. I know I was focused, as I said on yesterday's episode, on some of the trench players, but I also want to get some thoughts and pick their brains on some of the standouts at some of the other positions. And I will hand the mic to Treshon first. And I know, Treshon, for you, the bread pudding was probably the highlight of the day, the free bread pudding. But in addition to that, who else stood out to you, at least starting with the national?
Yeah, starting with the national team today, I thought Michael Wilson, Stanford wide receiver, had really stood out to me. He's about 6'1", just under 220. He's a physical receiver. He, seemed to be really smooth in the slot, which, kind of surprised me a little bit because he was primarily on the outside when he was at Stanford. But, he seems like somebody that could really fill that power slot role. A lot of Atlanta Falcons, fans know that's a position that the team would like to utilize. So he's somebody that I thought really stood out to me. And, he really liked what he was showing us today. Hunter?
One of my big standouts was Keion White from Georgia Tech. He's a versatile defensive lineman who plays with a lot of power and just versatility across there. I think he personally could line up as a 3-tech or a 4-tech as best, but they were using him across the defensive line the past 2 days of practice, and he just plays really well. He attacks with a lot of power, showed some spin moves and just pass rush moves that he hadn't really shown on tape, so that was cool to see. Found out also that I believe he's working with Chuck Smith?
Yes, correct.
I didn't want to say the wrong name, so
No, you were correct.
Sweet. But yeah, that's one of my big guys for international. Who else you got?
Yeah, kind of, to build off your point with versatility in the interior, Cody Mauch really started to make a name for himself. He's playing center today. He's playing both guard positions, and he really looked comfortable, in all 3 spots. And yesterday he was pretty much guard the whole day, but he did lead on that he kind of expected to get moved around. And he's somebody who's making the transition from tackle into the inside, and we really think that he's got the athleticism and what he would need to be able to go to guard, and then of course he's got the size. So really intrigued with what he can do.
Okay. Hunter, you got anybody else that stood out to you?
I mean, there was Keeanu Benton. Don't want to say the wrong name, but another guy that just played really, really well. he was a guy who kind of slipped through the cracks for me. We ended up watching him last night because Trey was hyping him up a lot, and I was really impressed. I think he just shows a lot of versatility. I think he plays like a nose for Wisconsin for the most part, but I think he could be used in a variety of ways, and I think he just showed a lot of pass rushing potential from the interior.
Do you know who he's working with as well?
Chuck Smith.
That's right.
Well, there you guys have it. So for all you Chuck Smith truthers that believe he has the magic touch when it comes to pass rushers, Keeanu Benton, the D tackle from Wisconsin, Isaiah McGuire, the edge rusher from Missouri, and the other person we mentioned, Keion White, Georgia Tech, big edge, I guess you could call him, in terms of how his profile fits. And those were some of the standouts to me. Today I wanted to focus a little bit more on the D lineman. Nesta Jade Silvera from Arizona State was another guy that popped to me a number of times. I know he was a player that impressed Jarvis Davis a lot on day one. He's a University of Miami transfer to Arizona State, kind of a bigger sort of pluggy nose tackle, kind of a guy, kind of reminds me a little bit of Corey Peters in a lot of ways, where he could be a guy that could play 3-4 nose tackle if you put, maybe another 10 or 15 pounds on him, like we saw Corey Peters do a lot in Arizona after he left Atlanta, moving from that 4-3, but also having that versatility to also play in a 4-3. And so, overall, a pretty solid day from the national team. We'll move this conversation ahead, talk a little bit about the American squad and some of the standouts there, and I will have to, hope Treshon and Hunter bring it a little bit more on that one, because I certainly was a little checked out at that point in time, and I said that on yesterday's episode. But in my defense, we're getting to like hour 5 of watching football, and it's like this equivalent of watching 4 quarters of one game and then watching a doubleheader of a second game. And if you imagine that, guys, like you'll probably be checked out for the second game in my defense. So we'll talk about that as we continue today's episode. But before we get there, I want to tell you about our brand new sponsor. That is, of course, FanDuel, our new partnership here on Locked On with the #1 sports book in America. That is FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better, because if you go and sign up at FanDuel.com/LockedOn, new customers can get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you sign up for your first $5 bet. FanDuel, you can bet money line, point spreads, and everybody's loving the same game parlay. Of course, you can check out this weekend's or next weekend's Super Bowl action when that comes. With last I checked, the Eagles were still favored by 1.5 points, and you can check out FanDuel on the app. It's safe, it's secure, super easy to use. So don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, guys, we're going to continue today's episode here with a couple of guys from Neptune Scouting from an undisclosed location here in Mobile, Alabama. And, since we're talking about Mobile, Alabama, I want to tell you that, Locked On is fully represented here in Mobile, and you can get the inside analysis from the hosts covering the next generation of college prospects if you subscribe to Locked On NFL Draft for your nightly live shows, recapping each day of practice, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, live on Locked On NFL Draft's YouTube channel. I made an appearance on the Tuesday night show. We'll see if I can make an appearance on the Wednesday night show. I'm sure some of you guys are watching this on Thursday, so it's moot at that point, but we'll see what goes on with that. But that being said, let's talk a little bit about the American practice, and I will hand it over to Treshon to talk about a couple of standouts in that afternoon practice that I was completely checked out of.
Yeah, so one guy that really stood out was Marte Mapu, linebacker from Sacramento State. He was actually called up from the NFLPA after having a really good week there, and he was fantastic in that game. And it's very clear to see why. He has the speed that you want to see somebody. Excuse me. He has the speed to keep up with the running backs and tight ends that are here. He's been great with his run fits, and he doesn't look like the moment's too big for him. He's maybe a little bit underweight, but that's something that he looks like he definitely has the ability to add more to his frame. He doesn't look maxed out or anything like that. It's a very intriguing prospect. And he's somebody that I think, he comes with a very unique background. He's played all over the football field. He's, outside, inside, safety. I believe he was a quarterback at one point as well. So, I personally really like guys who have, gone through an entire playbook for multiple positions and, at a higher level. I think that's something that's pretty unique. And, we know another guy like that currently on the Falcons who has that kind of experience. So, he's somebody that really stood out to me today.
I'm going to stick with my trend of staying with the trenches, but I think Zacch Pickens from South Carolina has just looked really, really good over these past 2 days. He's a pretty stout defensive lineman, a little kind of lean at the same time, though. He has an athletic build. Showed a lot of power the past couple days, and just kind of showed some pass rushing aspects that he didn't really show on tape too much. When you watch his tape, a lot of you're just kind of waiting for the light bulb to click. And I think this week it's finally starting to click more often. And it's been fun to watch, just watching him go against some of the good opposing linemen, like JMS from Minnesota. But it's been a very fun battle between them all week. So it's been fun watching Pickens.
And one more person, and it seems like so far this is the coming out party for him. If you didn't know about him, now you do, and that's Nathaniel Tank Dell, wide receiver out of Houston. He's been phenomenal from day one. He's violent in and out of his breaks. He has the speed that you want to see. He is a little bit undersized, but he got tested today with a high ball. And I mean, he was able to get up, high point it, had no problem getting down. And he's just somebody that I think, a lot of people might not have been prepared to actually see him come up and compete the way that he has. And he honestly might be, in my opinion, the best wide receiver through the first 2 days.
Now, I got a quick question about Tank Dell. It's an ironic nickname because he's 162 pounds. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on sort of this Senior Bowl here in Mobile being sort of the setting that his sort of skill set can shine, where he's doing some of these one-on-ones where his speed and quickness really can be put under the spotlight. But there's a reason why we don't see a lot of successful NFL 160-pound receivers. And do you feel like his skill set is one that can make him more of an outlier that translates to the next level, or is just kind of just a setting that allows him to be a little bit more successful?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think that's something that you do have to be careful that you're paying attention to, and making sure that it's not just this environment, but it's something that's actually going to be able to translate outside of it. And I do think that if he makes it, he's going to be an anomaly, right? Because he's, like you said, he's 5'8", he's 162 pounds. But he is somebody that I think he's shown you enough in the slot. He's shown you enough that with his actual route running ability, that he's not just doing this with his athletic skill, that he's actually showing that he has the technical ability to be an NFL receiver and to survive in the slot. And, not to just throw out names for the sake of throwing out names, but there is some Taylor Gabriel to this man's game, and it's something that I, if the right coach got with him, I really believe that he can make that transition.
Well, you said the magic word, Taylor Gabriel, and Falcon fans know that with the right coach, as you said, one coach did a great job with Taylor Gabriel. Every other coach somehow managed to screw it up. So I'm sure that does not bring unpleasant memories for Falcon fans here. But Hunter, is there anybody else that you wanted to point out? Okay. Well, guys, I appreciate both of you guys for joining me in this undisclosed location. As you guys can tell, here in Mobile, we have to sort of set up where we need to set up, not the usual professional setup that you are used to here on Locked On Falcons, but I don't care as long as you guys get the great information from these practice reports, especially in the afternoon practices where I am, out of the zone. But guys, go ahead and plug where they can find your stuff, your Twitter, your podcasts, all that stuff, if they want to get more insights into these draft players, where they can see maybe some written reports on these guys.
Definitely. So you can find me on Twitter at Treshon, TRE3SHON, and you can find us at the New Millennium Falcons at NM Falcons for our podcast, and Falcons_ATB for a quite few of the articles that we'll be writing up. You can't see him right now, but Savion Mixon is in the background as we speak, getting ready to write this content for you. So you do not want to miss out on it. And I'm going to pass it over to Hunter.
On Twitter, you can find me at HThompsonFB. You'll see most of my scouting stuff over at Neptune Scouting over on Twitter. And yeah, I'm on the New Millennium Falcons pod with Savion, and Treshon.
And like Hunter said, at Neptune Scouting, there's another person here at this undisclosed location right now, known as the spreadsheet sultan, Alex Caston. Make sure that you give him a follow as well. He's putting in a lot of work right now to make sure that you have the most up-to-date player tracker on his spreadsheets.
Guys, really appreciate you joining me on this episode, giving your insights. I'm sure we will touch base a little bit later in the process to, once we get a fuller picture of this draft class. I know you guys do a lot of great work when it comes to the evaluation. And of course, you are also embattled Falcon fans. So you are very like mine when it comes to, the future of this franchise. So, guys, there's more to come on today's episode. We'll be talking a little bit more about Terry Fontenot, talking about building in the trenches. We'll get into all of that, how the Bengals did it a couple of years ago with free agency, going from worst, not quite to first, but certainly top 15 in their defensive turnaround. And we'll touch upon that and how that is the template that the Falcons should follow as they build up this pass rush. And we'll get into that as we continue today's episode. But I want to tell you about Prize Picks, a fun new way to play daily fantasy. Just pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less in their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on your entry. Yeah, that's the thing. I keep forgetting that Prize Picks is upping the ante, going from 10 to 25 now that you can pick 6 players instead of 5. And the great thing about Prize Picks is you're not competing against other people. It's you versus projections, and they offer projections on really any sport that you can possibly imagine, not only the NFL, but the NBA, MLB, PGA, college sports, WNBA, NASCAR, esports, tennis, MMA, boxing. Prize Picks is safe, it's fast, it's easy, it's currently in operation in over 30 states in the US and Canada. And to play, you just have to download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. And first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That means if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit 50, Prize Picks will give you 50. Don't forget to enter that promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. So, guys, wrapping up today's Locked On Falcons here from this undisclosed location in Mobile, Alabama. Let's talk a little bit more about what Terry Fontenot had to say the other day at the Shrine Bowl practices when asked about the hiring of defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen. And I'll use the quote, put this on Twitter. I'm sure some of you guys can see it. But whether we're talking about the back end, the interior, the edge, referring to Ryan Nielsen, has a clear plan for how we want to continue to build this team, but we're going to always prioritize the front. We just talked about the trenches. That's where the games are won and lost. So Terry is definitely winning the PR battle, even winning over my colleague over at Locked On Sports Atlanta, Jarvis Davis, who said he's never heard a Falcons general manager say something along those lines. And I'm sure if he hasn't already talked about it on ATL Day Ones, he probably will. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta. So it is nice to see the Falcons focusing on the trenches this offseason, and we'll see if that is, the case. We'll certainly hold our feet to the fire if we get to March and April and they're not quite living up to those expectations. But that was one of the things that we talked about over the last couple of days when we talked about the Ryan Nielsen hire and why people should be a big fan of it, even if he isn't the hot name in the defensive coordinator coaching cycle, because his style of defense is going to rely on the team to be able to have a formidable front in order to play the style of defense that they want to play. Not only as a pass rushing team that's going to rely predominantly on rushing 4 guys, or a run defending team that's going to play with some softer boxes. So you need to have some physical players up front in order to do that. And we've touched upon this as well on the podcast. We talked about it in depth last year when talking about how we can revamp that last placed pass rush. And this year, the Falcons finished 31st in pass rush. So it's slight progress. But we've already touched upon how the Cincinnati Bengals were the last place pass rushing team in 2020 with 17 sacks. And then in 2021, on their path to the Super Bowl, they were able to upgrade that with 42 sacks. And when you look at that difference of 25 sacks improvement in one season, a lot of that came from new players, right? They added 29 sacks to that defense in 2021, and it was primarily through free agency. Trey Hendrickson had 14 of those sacks. Larry Ogunjobi had 7 of those sacks. They also made a preseason trade for BJ Hill, who added 5.5 sacks. They used a 4th round pick on Cam Sample, who had 1.5 sacks. And they also had a waiver claim in Wyatt Ray right before the season started, who also added a sack. You also saw a player that was already in Cincinnati, and Sam Hubbard, go from 2 sacks in 2020 to 7.5 sacks in 2021, in part due to having more playmakers and allowing him to be able to finish. He also was, I think, another point we touched upon before, where Hubbard was primarily an interior rusher in his early career, and then in 2021 was allowed to rush exclusively from the edge, and that helped him improve. And I use the Cincinnati example because, again, I know people are going to look at Terry's statement and talk about winning in the trenches, and we're definitely taking a pass rusher in round 1. We need to take a pass rusher in round 1. I'm going to sit here and tell you guys, if the Falcons are going to improve their pass rush significantly in 2023 and go from the 21 or so sacks that they had in 22, it is going to primarily come in March. That's why we've talked a lot about free agent signings, like some of those former Saints guys, like Marcus Davenport, David Onyemata, Caden Ellis, Shai Tuttle, as well as I'm sure some others. Deron Payne is going to be high on people's list. Javon Hargrave, I know, is another guy that's going to be high on these people's list. And I stress this, you got to get the guys that will come in right away and impact, right? As the Bengals showed, they only had one rookie, a 4th round pick, come in and make any major contributions, because these guys are not going to reliably get pressure and create these sacks as rookies. So for the Falcons, if they want to see significant games, if they want to go from 21 sacks to 35 sacks, 40 sacks in 2023, it is primarily going to start with their signings in March. And of course, over the coming month, or I think we're about 6 weeks away from the start of free agency, we'll obviously be breaking down a ton of the guys that the Falcons could or should target, in addition to the names I've already mentioned on today. So that is going to be a continued point of emphasis here on Locked On Falcons. Everybody's going to be talking about, who do we take in round 1? We got to take a pass rusher. And I'm going to sit here and say, kill that noise. You need to be focused on March, and free agency is way that the Falcons need to revamp this pass rush. And whatever happens in April with the draft happens, corner, running back, whatever. They take whoever they take, when it comes to April. But if they're relying on the draft to make significant gains for that pass rush, that is a non-starter in my book. So if Terry wants to live up to these words, the emphasis needs to come in March. And then we'll figure out what is the best course of action come April when it comes to the draft. Maybe that does include taking pass rushers with their top 2 or 3 picks. Maybe it doesn't. Either way, that is not the way to go. So I will continue to die on that hill here on Locked On Falcons, and we'll hopefully have some more day 3 content for you guys on tomorrow. There's the expectation that there may be some rain, and so that may mean that practice is canceled, at least from the media outlook. We won't be able to check it out. So we'll see if that comes to fruition on day 3. But if not, then we'll have something else to talk about. Maybe some risers, some fallers, after I go through and watch some of the film of some of those guys I missed, particularly in the afternoon American practice guys. But that is where we're going to leave it here. I really appreciate you guys for making Locked On Falcons your first listen. Make sure you continue to make us your first listen on your preferred podcast platform for those Senior Bowl updates, as well as this upcoming coverage about the Falcons, building in the trenches here on Locked On Falcons. For your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Draft for the live shows to break down all the Senior Bowl risers and fallers and standouts and all that and more. Locked On NFL is another great second listen for you. Locked On Sports Atlanta, Locked On Hawks, Locked On Braves, Locked On Bulldogs, all that and more, guys, all available on the same podcast platforms that you're currently watching or listening. Locked On Falcons, your team every day.